Waiting room. All right, there we go. Hello all, welcome to this week's free webinar from Van Tharp Institute. We have Dr. Ken Long with us today. Some of you may have joined us before, but if you're new, welcome. And we have a chat box. If you have any questions or comments along the way, feel free to drop them in there. You can also reach us at customerservice@vantharp.com. And with that info, I'll pass it on to Ken.
Alrighty, let's let me pretentiously send these files out because I can already hear Jim Carroll say, "Yeah, but are we going to get the slides?" Yeah, yes, Jim, you're going to get the slides. So hold your water. There was a little problem with Sarah downloading them, so she has the regular slide deck too, and is going to send them out just in case. So, in typical fashion. I finished the slides maybe half an hour before the meeting, and I was looking at the cover sheet here. Doing the work in all caps feels a little pretentious, so I'm just gonna, with your permission, we're just gonna talk about doing the work. Even that looks a little pretend. We're just gonna talk about doing work today. And even that looks a little inefficient. So that feels more like what we're going to talk about today, working. And I'm going to put 3 dots behind it so that that feels more correct. That seems to be the lesson learned from the 3 years of COVID, doing daily work, working every day. It's just work, but it's also work. I mean, think about the difference in the sound of those two phrases. Oh, that's just work, or that's work. One little word makes such a huge difference. And we're discovering every day that tiny little adjustments like that in the way that you look at the world, the way you act in the world, the way you perform your trades, accumulates over time, makes a real difference by attending to the small things. I'm inspired by these guys, the Guild of Master Craftsmen. It's a modern collection of multidisciplinary artisans from as many different crafts as you could imagine that have agreed voluntarily to get together and abide by the principles of craftsmanship that have endured for thousands of years and acknowledge craftsmen and their work when they see it, and acknowledge each other and sort of celebrate both the sacred and the mundane about work, the good qualities of it. And it's something that I aspire to. So I was thinking the other day about claims people make, and persuasion and evidence that people use to, hey, buy my product, or hear me out, or give me a moment of your time. And I was thinking about what that means for teachers. And I've come to this conclusion, that if you're a teacher, all I need you to do is show me your students' work. I don't need for you to teach me about all the teaching that you, the teacher, are going to teach me as we go into the teaching room and stuff. Just show me your students' work, and then I'll know something about you as a teacher. In the same way that if you're a soccer coach, I don't need you to tell me all about your philosophy. Just let me watch your players play, and then I'm going to know something about you as a coach. And so I try to teach. I teach so that I can learn. I see the reciprocal relationship between teachers and students. I see that as heads and tails of the same coin. That as a teacher, what I'm really trying to be is the best student of the material that I can be, and to model the kind of curious mind, critical thinking, creativity, practical application, hard work, a little joyful enthusiasm about life and collaborating. I'm trying to embody all of those elements of what I would hope to see in a student. I try to embody that as a teacher. And part of the way that I do that is try to be a good student of the material in the classroom, so that when students ask me questions I don't immediately know the answer to, then it's an opportunity for me to explore a new thing in a studious way, in a scholarly way, in a way that I would hope they would approach material as a student. And in that way, kind of demonstrate what I think a good student might look like by trying to be one. And in that way, I'm trying to teach. And I also feel that by being a good student like that, when I am a student in a classroom, then that kind of attitude is going to draw out the best of the teacher, who may respond to the way that I'm trying to be a good student. So what I would just offer to you here is the latest and greatest annual research weekend that we did in December 2021. I would have Jim Carroll's presentation on there too, but he is typically modest about his work. But these are, you can find these presentations. They range anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, and represent multiple months of guys doing various work projects to present to our community of practice, offering their best work. Because one of the things that we found this week, or this year, I suppose, doing the work, is that, there will come a time in your life when you finally realize what it is that you should have been working on, what your purpose is and all that. And when you get that realization, the very next thing that usually happens is a sense of despair, regret, anxiety, because, oh man, I wish I'd had more time that I was wasting before, because now I realize I don't have enough time to do all the things that I want to do. That's sort of a typical response. And then the next response would be, well, but you do have just exactly enough time to work on the most important things in your life, doing them the best you possibly can, all in, and sign your work, and then offer that work to the universe to evaluate and grade and judge and put into perspective. That's the universe's job, and it's large enough to judge you and the work that you do. Like, it doesn't need you to help it decide what your work is worth. So just give that to the universe and free up that extra energy to keep doing the best work that you can. There is a tremendous freeing feeling that happens when you are working in that way for the purpose of the work and for the purpose of your intention, and to get the best out of yourself and your team that you can, and offer that to the world, to the universe, with your name on it. So that just happened. Now you figure out what to do with it. In essence, what you're doing is you are filling your bowl with your own best true story about that work, whatever it is. And when you make that offering with the intention that the people may thrive for the good of the universe, offering your best work, you have then emptied your bowl. And then the feedback that comes back to you from the universe is the next thing that you have to work on. That when you genuinely empty your bowl and give it your best with all the proper intentions, the universe responds to that and fills your bowl up with the next thing that it needs you to work on. So just trust that the universe is going to do that, and just keep doing the best you can on the thing that seems to be the most important, and sign your name, and then trust the universe to do the rest of it. So there's just enough time to do that. And then nothing else actually matters. As my friend and spirit guide, Mike Three Bears, says, surrender, empty, nothing. He says you got to surrender to the realization that your job is to do your work, and it's the universe's job to do everything else. So just surrender to that, and then empty your bowl by doing your best work and giving it freely. And then nothing. There's nothing else you have to do except just do that and be in that moment, and then the next thing will be what it is. So tremendous sense of freedom that comes from doing work that is aligned with your intention towards your best purpose as best you can, recognizing that you're going to learn along the way. So I would say on our at tortoisecapital.net, you can access all those videos of guys reporting on the work that they did in 2021 through COVID. Danny Ben Yair, the programming genius of TC 2000, created an options course that directly supports our swing trading and hybrid trading and turns it into amazing options opportunities, in addition to programming every strategy I have and lens in TC 2000. Ken Hum gave a beautiful hour-long presentation of how he has become a fractal swing trader, like one day at a time, in which he frames trades on weekly, daily, and hourly basis, takes opportunities where they are available, and continuously updates his risk reward profiles. He posts his swing charts every Saturday night, and I comment on them as his coach. And you get about a dozen professional quality trade frames with coaching and insights on large cap liquid symbols and ETFs that you could do a lot worse than studying that as good practice, and also some really good trading ideas. Luke Crockford, our Australian CPA with the seventh child on the way and a full-time businessman who had no trading experience 2 years ago, has gone through about an 18-month-long process of trading one symbol a day with 3 or 4 standard patterns, documenting every trade, posting his trade frames every night in the chat room, receiving 5 minutes of coaching from me. And at the end of 18 months, he has about 2,400 trades with daily coaching commentary. He has about a 60% win rate, a 20% scratch rate, meaning he gets his money back, and a 20% loss rate. So his win rate is 3 to 1. Win to loss rate is 3 to 1, and his average win to average loss is 2-to-1. How often do you want to trade that? Oh, that's on 5-minute charts, trading the Aussie US dollar with no overnight risk. And he shows how he went through that process of learning, analyzing 50 trades at a time in a block, and then showing the historical improvements over time as he refined and applied his own insights to the basic rule set. That's doing genuine work. The hardest part is having to listen to me flog him every night in public on camera, being recorded about his trades. And since I'm lazy, we recorded all those, and we have all those in the archive, so you can review how he does that work. I have both of those guys preparing niche courses, because it turns out that each of the guys on this list have taken some of our basic ideas and tuned it to their own particular circumstances, skill sets, intentions, and objectives. And it seemed to me that they are typical of a lot of different categories of traders. So I said, if you really want to understand your own system, try to teach it. And so I've got them designing trading courses on how they trade with all the details that you would expect, and to turn that into a niche course that we'll market when it's ready, as a way for them to get a deeper understanding of their own work. They're working with interns right now to help make sure that what they say is understood at the elementary level. Bill Scheider, my drumming sensei, built a crypto coin swing trading system that used a couple rules and returned 150% last year, and doing better this year on the short side because of reasons, as you may have been aware of the recent dynamics, I guess is a polite way to say the price action in crypto these last few days and weeks. It's a dynamic price. Glenn Osborne is a professional musician who's transitioned into a full-time trader and has also developed a form of short-term swing trading that combines analyzing daily frames and longer-term patterns to create a portfolio that he updates very opportunistically and risk-informed. Phil Wu and Griff Cooper were interns that came out of the Super Trader program and have been digesting all of our technical courses and building out note sheets for each lesson and updating our glossary and building artifacts that show our processes cleanly and neatly. They've taken the time and trouble to go through my scribbles. I look like a monkey with a piece of chalk, and they've turned that into readable artifacts that have improved all of the courses that we teach. And they tell the story in their videos about what it was like to go through a course with a deliberate note-taking process with the intention of being able to share that with other people. So they were intentionally taking good notes for others. And it turns out that that kind of selfless service makes you a better student yourself. Griff has been doing so well on the Kata 2 challenge of the daily trade of Brazil and the Dow 30 that I've got him designing a course just for that, how to day trade DIA and EWZ with 3 basic patterns by the numbers. He hasn't had a losing day this year. Phil is doing one on a slower system, the OWL swing trade, that is geared towards Ameritrade, and translating all our frameworks into their trading platform. So that was interesting. And then Tom Hardison has been doing work on building collaborative teams and community of practice with true storytelling. He and I have been working on that together for almost 2 years. And that one's important because it talks about how to surround yourself with a multidisciplinary team of people that you can trust in a safe workspace where truth can be told, and how that generates opportunities beyond belief. So I would offer to you, these are guys that have been doing the work and documenting it, and their presentations are interesting and freely available on the tortoisecapital.net website. And I would bring that to your attention. It wouldn't be a day at work if we didn't have the sniper trade of the day. So with your permission, I'm going to walk you through the Tesla trade of the day from this morning. You guys are costing me a lot of money by being in here instead of trading Tesla at this moment, but I feel like that's, I'm willing to pay that price. I kid, but not really. So this is an example of the sniper trade of the day. The sniper rule set is a distilled minimum viable product of what we teach in the foundations course that I wanted to be able to render that into even more foundational rules and strategies. So the sniper system essentially is 4 candidates for targets. My current favorite one is what we call the Godzilla pattern. Let me pull him up here on the range, move him to the front. So Godzilla is king of the monsters, and we go through a screening process of the S&P 500 and the ETF 200 to find trades that have what I call a compounded critical state. And by compounded critical state, what I mean is there are 2 things that make a symbol or a target more likely to make large moves in any direction. The first one is location, and the second one is volatility. And when I say compounded critical state, here's what I mean. We take a look at 3 different time frames, short, middle, and long. And what we're looking for is trade location within a look back period within a trading range. And what we've observed is that when price is at an extreme high or low inside that trading range, that everybody that knows that is nervous and more likely to make large impulsive moves. And so the simple proximity to the top or bottom of a trading range creates conditions under which a large move is more likely. It's like a bag of microwave popcorn that's been in the microwave for 40 seconds and is going to start popping in 5 seconds or so. You want to start trading things and be ready to trade things that are just about ready to pop. So one of the things that you can do to identify those out of the tens of thousands of choices is to analyze trade location during different look-back periods. Why multiple look-back periods, Ken? Well, because there are different categories of traders. Some are day traders, some are swing traders, some are position traders. What I'd like to have is a target that makes all of them nervous. So if I can get something that is in a critical state by location for both short and medium and long term, then all 3 of those populations may be activated by a price movement, and now suddenly that thing is off to the races. So trade location is one of the 2 things that give us a critical state. The other thing is volatility. And volatility is a short-term emotional response to fear or greed that causes us to act in a survival mode or out of greediness to get more, because we're a hyena and the lions are coming, so we want to grab as much as we can. So short-term volatility is an emotional response to price action. The trade location over a look-back period is more of a rational analytical response to a particular trade frame. So you're getting a critical state from the rational brain and a critical state from the emotional brain. So what we look at is 5-day volatility and 1-day volatility, and we're looking for abnormality. I want things that are either extraordinarily volatile or extraordinarily quiet in those 2 different time frames. Because if it's extraordinarily volatile, that thing is already in play and the emotions are running rampant. And that's where a disciplined trader like myself can simply get in there and follow the rules and take advantage of the emotion that's already running amok in the marketplace. So I love some emotional volatility, abnormal volatility. But I also like abnormally quiet volatility, where everybody's looking to the left and right and saying, hey, it's quiet. Yeah, too quiet. And that's like a very quiet pond into which a young Jim Carroll is going to drop a big rock and make a big splash and then start all the fish running amok, because it's so quiet that any noise begins to trigger a large reaction because they get startled. So abnormally quiet leads to potentially large moves. Abnormally volatile, it's already participating in a large move. So when you can combine compounded critical state from those three different trade locations and the short-term volatility, then you have something that looks like Godzilla, king of the monsters. So the Godzilla pattern is something that is in the bottom 10% of its long-term, mid-term, and short-term trade frames. So it's very close to collapsing to new lows. And he's either extremely volatile, meaning he's already come out of the ocean and is crushing Tokyo under his feet, or he's just about ready to leave the ocean and catch Tokyo by surprise, extremely quiet. Either one of those conditions creates what we call the Godzilla setup. And when we scan the S&P 500, that's the first thing that I'm looking for, because that's the easiest thing in the world to trade. That thing is just going to go. I don't know which direction. It's just going to go hard and large and far and big. And all that is good, because I can use a small measured amount of risk and I have a potential for a very large reward. And all I have to do is be directionally neutral and then constantly monitor my reward and risk and then use rules to get in and out. So if I have 4 standard setups, I have 4 standard patterns on how to trade them once they start running. The supported spring crossing, the Kata 2 continuation trade, the collapsing dragon, and the WMB3. All of those are patterns we teach in the sniper course and in the foundations course. And so the combination of an amazing target that's ready to go, plus 4 simple ways to take the shot, creates the conditions under which sniper trading may occur. And this is an example of us doing the work this morning with a Godzilla pattern in Tesla. Now, it turns out that the standard work that we use is to estimate a minimum manageable risk box, which is a statistically derived amount of risk that we're willing to take. We update that daily. It turns out that in Tesla right now, that's about $8, the yellow box. And about half of that, or half the risk box, is the blue box. And so I start the daily trade frame with those things already drawn. Now, this is where yesterday closed on, well, I say yesterday, I mean Friday, it's on the same day. And all I'm looking at is a 5-minute chart with a simple Bollinger Band for the dragon, a simple PSAR to look at the footprints, and then a simple 3-period moving average. Now, I'm using Yahoo Finance because I want to show you that you don't have to be very sophisticated to be able to trade effectively when you are a sniper. In fact, simpler is better. So we start the day ready to trade this Godzilla pattern with our trade frames already prepared. And we notice that there is this morning, there's a very large gap down. That's the first 5-minute bar, and it closes at the bottom of the bar. And that's the least surprising move of all. Huge, huge volume. The next thing that happens is that the second 5-minute bar makes a new low, and that automatically triggers my entry And I call that a form of collapsing dragon. It's my number one favorite pattern. When you have the most important stock in the world, Tesla, that's in the news and is extremely volatile and has been slammed lately and is in the bottom 10% of its 10-day, 30-day, and 150-day look back, and it has a big gap down, and the market is in bearish normal conditions and collapsing, the least surprising move is down. The easiest trade to take is down. So when it makes a new low, I have evidence that the disaster is beginning to unfold. So I place my little yellow box of risk right here, and I notice that it made a lower high already. So I'm in the trade, and now the only thing I have to do is move my stop from here above the yellow box down to about here. When I am able to move that stop to here, I am in a new psychological state of no lose plus dinner for two. When I'm in a psychological state of no lose plus dinner for two, I simply have made this trade a science project. I no longer have personal risk, personal capital in that trade. It's simply a question of how much money the market is going to give my rule set. So I don't care what that is, because I got my risk out of there. The very first thing that happened was that as soon as I immediately experienced the emotional loss of a 1R, like, oh, it's immediately going to go against me and I'm going to lose all my risk capital. I can't help that. In fact, that's just the way my brain works, because I seem to be a monkey. My poor little monkey mind responds that way all the time. It doesn't want me to risk capital. It wants to use that money to buy bananas. So the sooner I can get my risk out, the sooner that chimpanzee will feel fine and will not plague me with lots of questions. So when I can move this trade to no lose plus dinner for two, which will be approximately at that red line, then I'm going to be happy. So what I'm looking for is an opportunity to do that. So as we advance the timeline here, the next bar makes a lower high, a lower low, and allows me to move my stop in the third bar. Once it starts failing more, I'm able to move my stop. So I've got about 10 minutes of open risk on this trade. And the collapsing dragon is in full force. And this is truly a science project. So now all I have to do is manage my risk during this collapsing dragon. I'm enjoying the fact that it's got lower lows and lower highs. Now, during this time frame, there's about 20 minutes of, about 20 minutes of sideways quiet channel developing, where I'm still in the money and it hasn't failed further. So what I do is I find the lowest point in that frame and I draw a line under that. I said, if it falls through that low, I'm going to add a second position because I've got about 1.5 R in hand. So it breaks down. I put a second position in, and very quickly I can move that position to no lose plus dinner for two. Now I've got two positions in the money. My chimpanzee is calm and quiet, and I can be happy and manage my trade. It moves all the way down here and then begins to level off. So I bring my half a risk box, my blue box, I come and anchor that to the lowest low while in the trade. And I say to myself, if this ever gives back a half of a risk box, that's the equivalent of giving back a full R because I've got two positions in. So that's about where I should be stalking an exit. So I don't know what it's going to do from here. It could just as easily continue to fail, or it could continue to rebound. I don't know. It's a science project, but I'm stalking the exit with the same intention as I did the entry. It leaves the blue box to the north. It begins approaching this boundary of the dragon, which is the 10-period Bollinger Band, plus or minus a half. And so I ended up getting this trade, an entry at 670, capturing it at about 650. So that's a $20 gain on $8 of risk, plus about another $6, so maybe half an R on the second one. So that's somewhere around 4R by the time, or 3R by the time we get done with the first trade. So now I get back to the zero state where I don't have a directional bias. And I notice my next pattern, the supported spring crossing occurs. It price crossed the dragon. It took out the PSAR. That's enough signal for me to get in with a supported spring crossing. I take my yellow risk box and hang it from my entry in the usual way. It moves into my favor. By about this time, I have to take my risk from here, lock in a no lose. I might even take half that bar because this is a counter trend rally, and I might want to lock in more gains. So the supported spring crossing now is also a science project, and my chimpanzee is calm. Good chimp. It rolls over. I take a 2-bar low and exit for about a half an R, more or less. And so on through the rest of the day, or at least until our trade started here. There were a couple of the other sniper patterns that occurred. A reversal short here on what we call the Kata 2. Oh, sorry, chimpanzee, you're not supposed to be there. So this is a Kata 2 pattern. When this comes back across the dragon and takes out the PSAR, we get short with a standard risk, but it didn't fail, so we scratch. It crosses the dragon to the upside, so we make our entry with a standard risk. It rolls over and gives us a fractional gain. So the net for the day until into the lunch period on the sniper trade of the day in Tesla is about 4R. No overnight risk, trading an abnormal condition with standard work. That turns out to be a wise way to trade. It calms the monkey mind beautifully. It leverages the dragon and the indication that it gives us, and it allows us to think like a sniper. To think like a sniper is to focus on the discipline of planning, preparing, executing, and assessing. And it always asks the question, are you ready to take the shot? If you are ready to take the shot, it's because you know that you have done all the planning and preparation, and all that is required now is the trigger to execute. And so the 4 things that we have to have are steady position, that we're calm and in the zero state, that we have a sight picture, which is that we have a trade frame that is standard and has been properly scoped, and that we are in the zero state, controlling our breath and relaxed, and that when the trigger to enter is hit, we pull the trigger and take the shot. And we don't question the sniper's judgment in the moment. We simply keep score and we assess the results when it's time. And then on the basis of evidence and statistics and coaching, we make careful adjustments to our patterns and our procedures rather than reacting in the moment and adjusting the next trade. We stick with our training and we trade at a level of risk that allows us to accumulate evidence of data and use that data to make judgments And we try to simplify and standardize in order to be not wasteful and to be careful. And that's the essence of sniper trading right there. It feels very much like just going to work at the mill and taking bushels and bushels of grain and grinding it slowly with a big millstone driven by water power to turn that wheat into grain to sell at market so that the people may thrive calmly, methodically, efficiently, beautifully. And that whole mindset leads you to the path to mastery, which is also doing the work. And these are some things that we've learned along the way. The first thing is that we adopt the principles of adult learning theory, the experiential learning model of David Kolb, and we recognize that typically learning that lasts goes through these 4 phases to various degrees, and based on your own preference. Inevitably, people will have a concrete experience where an emotional event happens, which leads to a moment of reflective observation to think about what just happened in multiple ways, bringing your mind to bear. And that once we've thought about it enough, we use abstract conceptualization to place those insights and that new knowledge into the larger context of how the world works. And then to confirm that insight, we then engage in active experimentation. It could be like testing or paper trading or small scale trading in order to confirm that the insights that we just developed with our head actually work in the world. And when that happens, we've completed one cycle of that if you neglect to do one of those 4 things, then typically you're going to go back and revisit that decision once again. And so we have built our trading and coaching practice. We have adopted the principles of the 5 ways of knowing with the walking man that comes out of the true storytelling tradition. Knowledge of the head, the heart, the gut. Then the knowledge of the head is the rational, technical understanding of things. The knowledge of the heart is the knowledge of alignment with your purpose and identity and intention. And the knowledge of the gut is that monkey mind that is always worried about danger and emotionality and risk, which is part of our decision-making process that must be accommodated, embraced, cherished, and applied in a sensible way to keep us safe, but not to dominate our thought process, but to respect it. And the knowledge of the hands is the knowledge of learning how to do things technically, efficiently, safely, with tools, with scale and leverage. And that the knowledge of the feet is how to incorporate those other 4 ways of knowing for the long haul, for a long journey towards mastery up the mountain. Because you don't just sprint up a mountain, you go through that in a deliberate process, and it takes an alignment of all of those ways of knowing in order to do that. And we found that if you can turn those 5 ways of knowing into the walking man who brings to a true storytelling roundabout your authentic true stories of your lived experience, and that you are able to tell the truth about those things in a safe and trusted space with people that you trust, that the combination of safety, trust, and truth will inevitably lead to opportunities far beyond your wildest imagination. And that in that way, we can learn to develop craft knowledge where each one teaches one in the same way that you find that in the arts and in metalworking and in carpentry and in martial arts, that there will come a time when you have a certain level of mastery about carving the wooden bowl, and that a new student will come in and they want to learn. So you try to teach them. And it turns out that in your own personal journey from new student to master craftsman, you have developed deep knowledge and sophisticated knowledge, and you might have lost the ability to address first principles. And when you try to teach a new student, they don't understand what you're saying until you learn to walk over to their side and look through their eyes at the wooden bowl that you're trying to create. And then you reconnect to the first principles of bowl carving. And you learn to express those ideas simply and beautifully. And then together you work back around the bowl, back to mastery. There are certain things about trading and craft work that you can only learn by teaching, which is why I ask my students to develop their own niche courses about how they trade, because it forces them to make the tacit internal knowledge fully conscious and aware and explicit, and then to encode that. And then the expertise comes out of that effort to try to teach it. If you want to learn something, try teaching it. Ask a teacher if that's true, and they'll say yes. So it turns out that in the martial arts, to achieve some of the higher belt rankings, you must engage in teaching the new students so that you can have access to the knowledge that only comes from teaching. That's a tradition that is thousands of years old and is embodied in the principles of the Guild of Master Craftsmen and is part of the sacred tradition of each one teach one. And that's why we do it in that way. Along the way, that what we found is that if you document your process with these artifacts, that you will increase the speed of learning. We think you need a trading journal that has the details of each and every trade that you take, why you took it, what you thought about it at the time, what you think about it afterward, the reasons that you made the decisions that you did, and then a self-assessment of how well you followed your own stated rules, the trading journal, which is different from the learning journal. The learning journal is the list of lessons that you've learned from all of your intentional activity, whether it's planning, preparing, executing, or assessing, or collaborating, or supporting somebody else, or just reading, or just listening. There will come aha moments to you, sudden moments of insight that you want to document for further reflection, and essentially use the experiential learning model to make sure that you go through the entire process of chewing on that moment of insight. Where did that insight come from? What does it signify? What are its deep roots? What are the implications and consequences? What can I do with it? What can I modify in my own practice as a result of the insight that I got? That is the deliberate, and the learning journal documents that particular activity. Well, the learning journal is nice. So the to-do list is the list of the everything that I've committed to act on. And the work in progress is the use of a Japanese Kanban system, which means limiting work in progress. So I might have 100 things on my to-do list, and if I try to do all of them, I won't do any of them. So what I want to do is make sure that I'm working on the most important things as best I can, efficiently, effectively, collaboratively, and get to closure and get the results, and then roll that into my updated assessment. So managing your work in progress in order to limit it to the important few, getting to closure, signing your work, that's how you get through that to-do list. The reflection journal then is when you periodically step back from doing those tasks 1 through 4, and you think about maybe the larger picture. What actually is my purpose, and who am I now, and where am I going? Is that what I still want? And what is the best thing that I can be doing? And how do I align myself in that way? That periodic reflection allows you to see the forest instead of just the trees. The trading journal is every little tree. The reflection journal is more of a contemplative, reflective discussion with your best self, the you from 40 years ahead, giving you advice or listening to your trusted others. So we think those documents there are essential to having a successful, expeditious journey up the mountain. Here's something else we learned. You think that wisdom is at the top of the mountain, so you want to get there. Here's something else we know. When you get to the top of the mountain, it might be cloudy and you may not be able to see the details of them little creatures that are down there living their lives. There's wisdom in where you were and what you did and who you are. And you bring that with you to the top of the mountain. And when you get to the top of the mountain, part of the wisdom that you discover there is the wisdom that you had all along the way. And then when you bring that back down the mountain to enrich the people, then you have even more to share. It turns out that as we go through these different phases of learning technical things and personal things and psychology, that it's normal to start in a period of unconscious incompetence. Like I didn't even know how bad I am until I begin to study it, and then I'm consciously incompetent. And now I am self-aware enough to know how bad I actually am. And then I can do something about it through intentional activity and instructional coaching and deliberate practice. And now I can become consciously competent. And when I am consciously competent, I want to make sure that I'm creating artifacts that lock in the competence into processes and checklists and habits and filters that only allow me to be excellent. So I'm going to ratchet my performance in a conscious way, because once I start adding repetitions, it becomes more automatic and more natural, and I have to think about it less, and I can just behave with excellence until I become unconsciously competent. And then at some point, I may drift into incompetence if the market moves away from me and I'm not aware of that. What used to be competence is now incompetence. And so I want a continuous assessment program to discover where in this cycle of continuous improvement am I. That's what gets documented in these learning journals as we do the work, as we go through the experiential learning model, recognizing multiple ways of knowing, working in true storytelling circles with trusted others, respecting craft knowledge and expertise, and contributing our best work as we go. Now, the way that's manifested lately, the style of teaching or the content of teaching now looks like this. There was a time when I was just teaching how to be a core trader and a swing trader and a day trader. And then that became hybrid trading, where we found ways to effectively blend systems from different time frames in order to provide an integrated portfolio management strategy, if you will. How to use swing trade setups to find really good targets to day trade. How to let day trades that are successful grow into swing trades because it's starting to attract more momentum from other time frames. That ended up becoming a foundations course in which we looked at the common techniques about psychology, systems, and markets with examples to give us the fundamentals that would support all of those styles of trading. Even that has started to become elaborate. And so the sniper trading course is our next effort to make that even more foundational, fundamental, where we're looking strictly at 4 kinds of targets. And then we're going to use 4 specific patterns to trade them based on what price is doing. And we're going to adhere to rigorous standards in order to refine our technique. The other things that we have in development are what I would call the collection of skills and attributes that I think of as the trader's mind. I believe that traders incorporate all of the following types of thinking. Got to be creative in order to adapt to a changing dynamic market. I think you've got to have critical thinking so that you can distinguish between stories and evidence. I think you've got to be a systematic thinker so that you can build processes that are robust and self-sustaining. I think you have to incorporate lean management so that you are resource efficient and that you maximize the value. And that combines with continuous improvement in order to consistently get better towards excellence every day in the small things and the large things. And I think you've got to develop emotional resilience in order to deal with the fact that it is a jungle out there and this is hard work. And I think you need skills in team building and team playing so that you can either create your own team or be a good member of somebody else's team, and you're going to end up doing both of those. So I think collectively, the body of knowledge that we are developing and working on every day, that's the work that we're doing in order to present a robust skill set to survive and then thrive in the markets. And I noticed that where did that hour of our life go? There it is. So I wanted to just share with you today the things that we've learned over the last 3 years. Where has that time gone? That COVID has sort of driven us into raising our level on doing daily, weekly, monthly work and what that work looks like, and why I think it's important that work gets documented and that you study what people are doing, and that we learn how to collaborate together for our mutual survival. It's so I'm going to turn it over to questions. I've taken up enough of your time, and I genuinely appreciate the opportunity to share what we have been doing with you, and I am open to your questions. While we're waiting for questions to come in, this is sort of the an artist's rendition of our trading ecosystem. I think very often of the, a village trying to survive and thrive together near the mountains. The water keeps us alive, and we learn to channel those natural forces and respect those natural forces, and are part of the ecosystem of trading. Darren asked me if I prefer stocks over futures. If so, why so? I like stocks because there are moments where you can trade individual stocks in the S&P 500 that are very liquid and give you extraordinary movements because the population that's trading them is small. And so suddenly you can get extraordinarily large moves that you might not get with the futures. But I do love the futures because they are so efficient in terms of capital, and you get much more of a reliable volatility that you can trade, sort of like industrial momentum, whereas the S&P 500 components start taking they're more individualistic in nature. So it turns out that the patterns that we teach are fractal in nature, and so they apply to both of those directly. And there are some ETFs that we can trade directly, but which also trade in the futures in exactly the same way. And so I think what you want are patterns and habits and processes that are robust to both of those, and that depending on the account size and skills and time and objectives, that the answer to that is either or both. David asks, took the day trading course in 2015. Have these systems changed much? I would say that the elements of the frog are now found in the sniper system. And what we've done is essentially develop the idea of the frog box and shrunk that down to what we call the minimum manageable risk box. So for instance, in Tesla, the frog box is about, if I recall, is about $30. The minimum manageable risk box is about $8. And so by refining our technique and shrinking the size of the risk box, you can get to no lose plus dinner for two sooner. In the same time that while you were waiting for the frog box to fully develop and then get the entry, in sniper trading, you can actually get those entries sooner, and you can be locking in gains at a moment when the frog is just starting to enter. I still love the frog box in the concept. It turns out that the sniper trading and our intraday systems now are more refined. The principles of the RLCO, all those patterns are still absolutely valid. And the patterns like the standard, the supported spring crossing actually refer to certain moments in the RLCO framework that have important significance. So like when the 10-period regression line crosses the dragon, that's a key sign to be ready to enter. And so the RLCO framework and the Bollinger Band framework gives us the means to interpret market conditions for location and volatility. But the refined techniques of the sniper, I think, takes that to what I would call second generation patterns. What you probably took in 2015, I think of as generation 1 RLCO patterns. Generation 2, I think, takes that to the next level of refinement from experience. Let me know if that answers the question. While I'm waiting for the next question, let me throw this one in here real quick. This is this artifact is a mindset for the sniper trade. What we're looking for with our signal generators, essentially, is we're looking for those sniper patterns, those setups, to let us know that this symbol that is in this blue box is now poised because of location and volatility to make larger moves in multiple directions. And so the small inside trade here is us maybe intraday trying to see our 2-to-1 reward to risk, get that locked in. And then if it breaks out of the daily range, we know that that thing can move back to, say, the 10-day high or the 10-day low. And so you end up getting a turbocharged additional momentum as these other timeframes come online and start buying the momentum. So it's not unusual to see, a lot of small gains, but every so often one of those momentum plays will really hit, and it may lead you to a 10 or 15 or a 20-hour win where you've been able to manage risk all along the way. And what we're doing on the left-hand side of this trade process, these standard questions, this is the standard work that we bring to each trade frame to say, based on the indicators of the RLCO framework, we frame that trade by answering those questions. What are we seeing? What are the patterns? Where could it easily go? Which way do I want to trade? Where are the entries and the stops and the support and resistance? Where on a successful trade do I lock in the gains? Where would I stop and reverse? Would I trade it the other way? And so what we end up doing by answering these questions is structure a trade that we have rehearsed in both directions and are not surprised then when price does whatever it does, because we've already seen that and then rehearsed the decisions that we're going to make. And so in that way, by framing the trade in both directions, we are not directionally biased. We are prepared to trade wherever the price takes us. And that has been profoundly helpful during the bearish markets of the last 3 months, where you get sharp reversals and large moves that are surprising a lot of people that think bull markets go up forever. So this has been one of our best trading years altogether. And we'd invite you to play along with us. Any other questions? This is what I was, Greg, is it Greg? Yeah, Greg says of all those, which one would I suggest represents, reflects the best current thinking? Here's what I would say. If I'm looking at this as the ecosystem, I would say based on your self-assessment, if you are already, a skilled trader and are looking to add refinements, I would go to the foundations course and look at the broader concepts of system, self, and market. You're going to learn the 3 patterns that are in the sniper trading, but it's going to give you a wider look over a 10-week period of things that I think could raise your game or fill in the gaps. The foundations course would be appropriate for that kind of person. If you're looking for a specific thing that I could start trading next week, I would go right to the sniper trading and focus in on target selection, 4 specific patterns, start trading it tomorrow forward with paper trading, and then start building up the proficiency through practice. And in that way, in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, you would end up being exposed to what the foundations course will then fill in all the other gaps for. But if you were in a more of a sense of urgency and not do some of the extraneous stuff, I think the sniper course stands on its own, but I see those as reciprocal in nature. One is narrow and deep, and that's the sniper trading course, and then the foundations course is broad and selectively deep. And then what I typically do is give you a discount if you take one and then want to take the other. I give you a coupon to reduce the price. So you can take that iteratively. The other more advanced courses, the core, the swing, and the day, and the hybrid, go much, much deeper into dozens of trading ideas. And I actually discourage people from taking those higher price courses, which is bad business practice, I've been told. But I think I would rather see you foundations and sniper in whatever sequence makes the most sense, and get those foundational pieces and then grow into the other ones as needed. My personal belief is that the fractal patterns that we teach in the foundations are sufficient for a lifetime of trading, that you'll end up developing your own rule set from them with the coaching we provide. And then the core, swing, and the day are simply ways to get even more insights and more ideas. With the I might say also the home study core course that VTI sells is rock solid. I mean, that's a couple minutes a month and take care of long-term business. That is still rock solid. So I would say that. But I would discourage you from taking the advanced swing and day until you'd been through foundations and sniper. That's my my experience with that. I'm sorry. Let's see. There was Jason asks, what am I using for signal generations and software? So a couple things. I'm using, my son just completed a data analytics boot camp. So I've got him running algorithms on the S&P 500 and the ETF 300 with Python to find those 4 sets of standard patterns for the sniper. So we're using Python and then Excel to make the presentations. You can actually, if you have a quote server, you can do all that stuff in Excel. We have it coded in TC 2000 also to do that. So any reasonable stock screening software should be able to find the patterns that we do. Now, I publish a daily and a weekend report for subscribers that maybe don't want to do the work, you just want the daily report. And then we talk about that in the nightly podcast and on the weekend. So, but my intention is to make traders information independent of me. It's actually stressful to know people are waiting for my report to get their trading targets for their, it's my intention to provide ways for people to be information independent. The TC 2000 bundle we sell is Danny Ben Yair's implementation of all my strategies, bulletproof, in a beautiful trading package that saves you hundreds of hours of busy work and is worth it for the admin time savings. But my daily reports are there. But you can find these in any competent screening software. Let's see. Richard asks, how do you make your intraday stock selection? So I have, so each day my plan has me generating about 10 to 15 symbols that are ideally suited for the intraday trade. So I put all those on a watch list. I have them on a radar screen, and I'm watching to look for the size of the gaps, and I have them coded for alerts. And so when the first stock that goes into a harsh winter condition triggers the alert, it comes up on my screen. I can start looking for the supported spring crossing. The TC 2000 bundle shows the steps and the criteria, so you can see which ones have fired which rules. And so that's just a process of managing a selected herd of targets, which includes symbols that I trade every day anyway. So I have those on a radar screen and a monitor with 6 to 8 charts that are up of interest, and then just visual box trading from there. The nightly strategy podcast of the daily report actually represents the planning and preparation process I use to select from my standard list of about 60 symbols. I look personally at about 60 symbols every day, and that renders down to about 10 that are ideal. Those are prepared, and then they go on a radar screen. You can see us do that every night on the Nightly Strategy podcast. If you go to my YouTube channel, you can see a bunch of those samples of us doing that every night. If you send me the email, I'll send you the link to you can listen to the podcast for free. Darren asks, let's see, spoke of zooming into individual stocks in the S&P with a fractal method. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. That was the same question. Yep. Yeah. So there's so many things that could be tradable. What I need is those lenses to restrict it to just the ones that are the most optimum for large explosive moves. Like 2 symbols that we traded this morning in addition to Tesla. One was ARE. It's a healthcare real estate company that was at the bottom of its 10-day, 30-day, 150-day range, was extraordinarily volatile in the 1-day and 5-day. It broke through the low of the day, instant short, massive return. And that's one that just gets culled out of the daily report. If I had one of those. Yeah, anyway, so that's a daily process of scanning at the end of the day for tomorrow's setups. And that's what we cover every night in the strategy podcast for folks that are learning how to do that. Pretty straightforward. My email is longke@yahoo. I should have probably put that on. Let's see, insert. If you ever want to get a hold of me. Okay. Just send me a note. Happy to connect you with what we do. Any other questions? This feels like the natural respiratory pause there, Sarah. So if you're still on, if you get a chance, send me the video for my own file so I can listen to the lies I told. Try to fix any errors.
Of course I will. And that recording will be going out to everyone else as well by the end of the day today or first thing tomorrow morning. And like I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions following this webinar, feel free to shout out customer service at vantharp.com. We'll be happy to get you information or answers you need. And then finally, just thank you once more, Ken, for sharing your time with us today.
Always
Thanks,
good to
everyone.
see you, Sarah. To everybody, I said, hey.
Will do. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day or evening, and I hope we see you at the next one.